Aubrey Lancaster had always believed that the quietest moments in life were the safest ones. But on that late Friday afternoon, as she stood alone inside the glass elevator rising toward the 58th floor penthouse, she felt an ache in her chest she couldn't explain. New York's skyline glowed behind her, but the reflection staring back looked tired, like a woman who had spent too many years pretending everything was fine. The day had started normally. A canceled medical appointment, a sudden headache, and a decision to head home early. Nothing dramatic, nothing unusual. Yet something in her gut whispered that going home wasn't a blessing, only a reveal waiting to happen. Aubrey stepped into the penthouse, heels clicking against the marble floor. The place felt wrong, too quiet. The kind of quiet that wasn't peaceful, but staged. She walked past the living room, the one Garrett insisted they decorate with cold Italian stone because it looked like success. Everything in this home was a symbol of his rising empire on Wall Street. The Mont Blanc pen collections, the framed interviews, even the untouched bottle of vintage wine displayed like a trophy. But today, it felt like a museum of lies. She set her handbag on the counter and noticed something strange. A half-filled glass of champagne on the side table. Garrett never drank champagne alone. He always said it was a social drink. And he was supposed to be at the office preparing for the final round of investor meetings. Her stomach tightened. Then came a sound. Faint. A soft thud. Followed by a muffled voice she couldn't make out. Aubrey froze, every nerve alert. She moved slowly down the hallway, her breath shallow, her hands trembling, even though she kept telling herself she was imagining things. Her mind tried to offer logic. Maybe Garrett returned early, maybe he was on a call, maybe he dropped something. But with every step, the dread grew heavier. Aubrey paused outside the bedroom door. Light spilled through the crack beneath it, warm, golden, intimate. She reached for the doorknob, but her fingers wouldn't close around it. For a moment, she simply listened. A whisper, a soft laugh, not Garrett's, a woman's. The air disappeared from her lungs. She pressed her hand against her chest, feeling her pulse hammer beneath her palm. She tried to step back, to leave, to pretend none of this was real, but her feet moved forward instead. She pushed the door open. What she saw inside didn't just break her heart. It annihilated it. And standing at the foot of the bed was someone she never expected to see in Garrett's life, or in her nightmare. And in that moment, Aubrey realized this wasn't just an affair. This was the beginning of a war she never knew she'd have to fight. Aubrey's vision blurred as she staggered back from the bedroom doorway, her pulse roaring in her ears. But the shock didn't fully register, not until the woman on the bed lifted her face, pushing a strand of glossy blonde hair behind her shoulder with the same careless grace Aubrey had seen thousands of times before. Vienna Reed, her best friend, her sister in everything but blood, the woman who held her hand during her miscarriages, the woman who slept on her couch when her own relationships fell apart, the woman who toasted Aubrey and Garrett at their wedding with teary eyes and trembling lips. Vienna. In her bed, Vienna, wearing Aubrey's silk robe. Vienna, smirking like she already won something. Aubrey didn't even know she was losing. Garrett didn't move. He didn't even try to cover himself. He simply leaned back against the pillows as if this was another business meeting he had perfectly under control. His expression was calm, too calm, like he had rehearsed for this moment, like he expected her to walk in. And Vienna didn't look embarrassed. She looked triumphant. "Aubrey," she said softly, almost tenderly, "you weren't supposed to be home." Those words cut deeper than anything else. Not an apology, not shock, not guilt, just inconvenience. Aubrey stumbled back into the hallway, her breath shallow, her fingers gripping the wall to stay upright. Her mind replayed every memory, every laugh, every secret, every night they sat on Aubrey's balcony, drinking cheap wine and dreaming about their futures. Had Vienna envied her all this time? Had she pretended to be her friend while plotting to replace her? Vienna slid off the bed, moving with a lazy confidence Aubrey had never seen in her. She walked closer, barefoot on the cool marble, tying the robe more tightly around her waist. "Aubrey, let me explain." "Don't," Aubrey whispered, her voice cracking. Not a single word. But Vienna wasn't finished. She stepped closer, eyes narrowing with a strange mix of pity and superiority. "You've been unhappy for a long time," she said gently, as if comforting a child. "Garrett needs someone who understands the world he's in now. Someone who isn't afraid of power. You disappeared, Aubrey. You let the marriage run on autopilot." Aubrey's jaw trembled. Was this real? Was her best friend blaming her for being betrayed? Garrett finally spoke, his tone cold and efficient. "Aubrey, go cool off somewhere. When you're thinking clearly, we'll talk about how to settle this without ruining both our lives." Settle. He was talking about their marriage like it was a contract that expired. Aubrey swallowed hard, fighting the dizziness pressing against her skull. She turned toward the door, but Vienna's voice followed her. "You'll thank us someday." This was inevitable. That sentence nearly brought Aubrey to her knees. Because it wasn't just betrayal. It was betrayal planned, calculated, discussed, mutual. Her heart cracked open with a silent scream. She grabbed her handbag, her coat, whatever dignity she had left, and walked out of the penthouse without looking back. The elevator ride down felt endless. Her reflection in the mirrored walls looked like a ghost, pale, hollow, breaking. By the time the doors slid open onto the lobby, her tears had dried into tight, burning lines on her face. But as she stepped onto the marble floor, something caught her eye. The doorman looked nervous. Too nervous. He watched her as if he knew something she didn't. And just before she pushed through the glass doors onto the street, he whispered, "Mrs. Lancaster, there was someone else upstairs before you came. Someone who didn't want to be seen." Aubrey froze. And in that instant, she realized Vienna might not be the only person Garrett was hiding from her, or the worst. Aubrey stumbled out into the cold Manhattan air, the city lights blurring like smudged watercolor. Taxis hissed through puddles, horns blared, people rushed past her, but she heard nothing. The world had gone silent, except for the pounding of her own heartbeat. Her best friend, her husband, another unknown person the doorman hinted at. The betrayal spiraled through her like ice water. She walked without direction for nearly 10 blocks before she finally ducked into a quiet corner of a late-night coffee shop. The warmth hit her face, and for a moment she thought she might collapse. She grabbed a seat by the window, pulled off her gloves with trembling fingers, and tried to breathe. She replayed the doorman's words. "Someone else was upstairs before you came. Someone who didn't want to be seen." Someone else. Why? Why would someone sneak into her penthouse before Vienna? A chill rippled through her. Was Garrett involved in something darker than infidelity? A barista gently set a hot cup of chamomile tea in front of her. Aubrey blinked in confusion. I didn't order anything." The barista nodded toward the counter. "He said you looked like you needed it." But there was no he in sight. Whoever had paid was already gone. Another crack in a night full of cracks. Aubrey pressed her palms to her eyes, trying to force back the rising panic. She needed clarity. She needed logic. She needed something familiar, something safe. Instinctively, she pulled out her phone and opened her call history. Garrett had called her 4 times earlier that afternoon, but she hadn't answered because she was at the clinic. Before those calls, though, one name she hadn't seen in years appeared on her recent list. Logan Hayes, her former mentor. Her old boss from Chicago, a man she respected deeply but hadn't spoken to in ages. She didn't remember calling him. She didn't remember missing a call either. But the timestamp aligned almost exactly with the moment she had stepped into the clinic. Why would Logan call her after all these years? And why today of all days? Her fear began to twist into suspicion. She reached into her purse to grab a tissue, and her hand brushed something cold and metallic at the bottom. She froze. Slowly, she pulled out a tiny black USB drive she had never seen before. There was no label, no explanation, but it was sitting in her bag, placed there by someone. Her breath hitched. Someone had been planning something long before she walked into that bedroom. She stared at the USB resting in her palm. It felt like a key, a clue, or a threat. But she couldn't process it. Not yet. Instead, memories began to rush back. Subtle behaviors she'd dismissed, cracks she once ignored. Garrett's sudden business trips, unexplained withdrawals hidden under operational expenses. Vienna's interest in Garrett's company, masked as friendly curiosity. The strange visitor last month who claimed to be a financial consultant but didn't show a badge. The night Garrett came home smelling of someone else's perfume. And Vienna said she spilled some on him by accident, during a hug. The lies threaded through her mind like toxic vines. She looked up at the empty coffee shop, then back down at the USB. Her fingers trembled as she slipped it into her coat pocket. Aubrey finally whispered to herself, this wasn't just an affair, it was a setup. Her marriage wasn't collapsing, it had been collapsing for a long time. She had simply refused to see the fractures running beneath the surface. But now, the glass penthouse of her life had shattered completely. And somewhere behind all these cracks, something far more dangerous than betrayal was waiting for her. The next morning, after a night of broken sleep in a cheap midtown hotel, Aubrey woke with the kind of heaviness that made her wonder if her lungs had forgotten how to breathe. Her eyes were swollen, her throat raw, and her heart numb. It wasn't pain anymore. It was a hollow space where everything familiar used to live. She stared at the unfamiliar ceiling for a long moment before forcing herself upright. Last night replayed in her mind in flashes. The champagne glass, the silk robe, Vienna's cruel calmness, Garrett's rehearsed coldness, the doorman's frightened whisper, and the USB now sitting in her coat pocket like a burning coal. Aubrey needed answers, but she needed clarity first. She showered quickly, threw on jeans and a sweater, and stepped out into the cold morning air. The city was already awake. Delivery trucks, honking taxis, early commuters. New York didn't care whose life had fallen apart overnight. It simply kept moving. Aubrey forced herself to move too. Her first destination was the clinic. She hadn't planned to return, but something told her that yesterday's canceled appointment wasn't the coincidence she thought it was. Inside, the nurse recognized her immediately. "Oh, honey, I'm so glad you're back. We called you twice yesterday. Your appointment was canceled because the doctor had an emergency, but your test results did come in. He asked to speak to you personally." Test results. Aubrey's stomach clenched. She tried to steady her voice. "Are they bad?" The nurse glanced toward the doctor's office, hesitating. "Just wait for him." A few minutes later, Dr. Patel entered the room with a gentle seriousness that made Aubrey's palms sweat. He sat beside her, lowering his voice. "Aubrey, your blood work shows signs of significant adrenal stress, the kind that doesn't appear overnight. You've been carrying emotional strain for a long time." She swallowed. "I've had a lot going on." "I can see that, but there's another concern." He slid a folder toward her. "Your hormone levels suggest your body has been under extreme chronic tension. If this continues, it could affect your long-term health." Aubrey blinked hard, fighting tears. "Not now, not here." The doctor touched her hand gently. "You need distance from whatever is harming you, not later, now." His words landed like a verdict she already knew was true. Leaving the clinic, Aubrey felt the weight of everything pressing down on her, but also a strange, rising clarity. Garrett hadn't just broken her heart. He had been breaking her health, her confidence, her sense of self, one small piece at a time. And Vienna? Vienna had been feeding that collapse, smiling through her teeth while helping remove the foundation from under Aubrey's feet. But there was still one part of the puzzle she couldn't shake, the doorman's warning. Someone else had been in the penthouse before the betrayal scene, and Logan's missed call yesterday. Why had he reached out? She took a deep breath and dialed his number. It rang once, twice. He answered immediately. "Aubrey?" His voice was steady, deep, familiar. "Thank God you called back." Her heart lurched. "Logan, did you call me yesterday?" "Yes, I've been trying to warn you about something involving Garrett. It's urgent." Her knees weakened. "What do you mean? What does Garrett have to do with you?" There was a long pause, long enough to raise every hair on her arms. "Aubrey," Logan finally said, voice low, "Garrett is not who you think he is, and the person the doorman saw, that wasn't Vienna." Aubrey gripped the phone tighter, the world narrowing to a single terrifying moment. "Then who was it?" she whispered. Logan exhaled shakily. "Someone who came to deliver a message, and the message was meant for you." Aubrey stood on the sidewalk, the phone still in her hand, Logan's final sentence echoing through her mind like a chilling warning she couldn't unhear. "Someone came to deliver a message, and the message was meant for you." Her pulse throbbed in her temples. She needed answers, but she also needed to understand exactly what happened before everything fell apart. So she did something she never thought she'd do again. She returned to the penthouse. The building's marble lobby felt colder than usual. The doorman, Mr. Harlan looked startled when he saw her. His eyes flicked nervously toward the elevators, as if waiting for someone else to appear behind her. "Mrs. Lancaster, are you sure you want to go back up there?" Aubrey forced a steady breath. "Just for a moment." His Adam's apple bobbed as he swallowed. "If you see Mr. Hollingsworth, please be careful." She hesitated. "Is he upstairs?" The doorman paused too long before answering. "I'm not permitted to say." That alone told her everything she needed to know. When the elevator doors closed, she leaned against the mirrored wall, gripping the handrail as her legs trembled beneath her. She didn't know what terrified her more, seeing Garrett again or finding out what else he had been hiding. The elevator chimed on the 58th floor. The hallway looked the same as the night before, sleek, silent, lined with dim wall sconces that cast soft pools of golden light, but the air felt wrong, heavy, expectant. As she approached the penthouse door, she noticed something odd. The security keypad had a faint scratch she didn't remember ever seeing before. Someone tried to get in, or someone broke in. A shiver crawled down her spine. She slowly typed the code, pushed the door open, and stepped inside. The scent hit her first. Not the scent of Vienna's perfume, not the sickly sweet jasmine from last night, but something darker, metallic sharp. A scent that didn't belong in a home. The living room was untouched, the kitchen spotless, the dining table still staged for two, the way Garrett liked to impress guests. But when she reached the bedroom hallway, she froze. A box, a small black box sitting neatly on the floor, like someone had placed it there for her to find. Her heartbeat thudded. She crouched and opened it carefully. Inside was a single memory card. And a note, just one sentence. "You saw the tip of the knife. Now look at the blade." Aubrey's blood ran cold. Before she could process it, a voice echoed behind her. "You shouldn't be here, Aubrey." Her head whipped around. Garrett stood near the living room, buttoning his shirt, hair perfectly styled as if last night's betrayal hadn't happened. He looked polished, calm, even slightly annoyed, like she'd interrupted an important meeting. The very sight of him made her stomach twist. "We could have avoided all this," he said, stepping closer. "You walking in yesterday, that wasn't supposed to happen." Aubrey stared at him in disbelief. "You planned it? You planned for me to walk in on you in Vienna?" Garrett scoffed lightly. "I planned for you to be gone all day. We were supposed to finish filming without interruptions." Filming. Her knees nearly buckled. "So it was intentional," she whispered. Garrett's eyes darkened. "Everything I do is intentional." The cruelty in his voice sliced through her. She backed away, but his expression shifted from annoyance to warning. "You've already complicated things more than necessary. So for your own sake, leave whatever message someone tried to give you. Don't touch anything that isn't yours." Aubrey's breath caught. He knew about the box. He knew someone else had been there. "Garrett, who came to the penthouse before I arrived?" He paused, smirked, like he found the question amusing. Then he said one sentence that made Aubrey's blood freeze in her veins. "Someone who wants you alive a little longer." Aubrey didn't remember leaving the penthouse. One moment she was staring into Garrett's icy, unblinking eyes, and the next she was outside on the street, the winter wind slapping against her cheeks like reality demanding she wake up. "Someone who wants you alive a little longer." The words looped in her head, haunting, cryptic, dangerous. She walked until her legs burned, until the city blurred into streaks of headlights and neon. She didn't stop until she reached the stone steps of St. Clair's Church, a place she used to pass on her way to work years ago. She sank down on the steps, burying her face in her hands. Her entire world had detonated in 24 hours. Her marriage, her best friend, her health, her safety. Even her memories felt unreliable now. For years, she had convinced herself she was happy, content with Garrett's perfectionist obsessions, his cold silences, his business trips that never aligned with his calendar. She told herself stress made him distant. She told herself Vienna was just too friendly by nature. She told herself she was overthinking things. But last night proved everything she ignored had bloomed into a nightmare behind her back. Aubrey's shoulders shook as she tried to inhale. But each breath felt thinner than the last. The tightness in her chest returned, the same suffocating pressure the doctor warned her about. She pulled her coat tighter around her, but the cold wasn't outside. It was inside, a hollow ache she couldn't escape. Her phone buzzed. Logan. She hesitated, wiping her tears with the back of her hand before answering. Aubrey, he said softly, sensing her distress. Where are you? I can't go back there, she whispered. Something's wrong, Logan. Not just the affair. Something else. Someone entered my home before Vienna. Garrett knew about the memory card. He told me someone wants me alive a little longer. Silence. Not a normal silence, an assessing one, heavy and calculated. Aubrey, listen carefully, Logan said. You need to get somewhere safe. Not a hotel, not anywhere Garrett could track. Do you still have the memory card? Yes. Good. Don't plug it into anything yet. I'm coming to you. Tell me your location. I'm at St. Clair's, she murmured. I'll be there in 15 minutes. Stay visible. Don't go anywhere shadowed or isolated. And Aubrey, don't talk to anyone. The urgency in his voice tore through her fog. 15 minutes. She just had to hold on for 15 minutes. But the moment she lowered the phone, her vision started to blur again. Not from tears this time, but from exhaustion. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving her body shaking, drained, unsteady. She leaned back against the cold stone wall of the church, closing her eyes. And memories began to surface. Memories she had buried. Like the time she found Garrett burning documents in the fireplace at 2 a.m. The night Vienna accidentally deleted Aubrey's email archive. The anonymous letter last year warning her to ask what your husband hides at the office. The unexplained scratch on Garrett's wrist he claimed was from a cabinet. The night he came home pale and silent, smelling faintly of fear. Not guilt, but fear. At the time, she hadn't questioned any of it. Now, each memory clicked into place with horrifying clarity. She wasn't just betrayed, she was entangled in something deeper. Something illegal. Something life-threatening. Footsteps echoed down the church steps. Aubrey jolted upright, panic spiking. But it wasn't Logan. It was someone else. A silhouette approaching slowly, carefully, as if they knew exactly who she was. Aubrey Lancaster? A low voice asked. Aubrey's heart stopped cold. Because at that moment, staring at the shadowed figure, she realized she might not survive long enough for Logan to arrive. The man stepped closer, just far enough for the streetlight to reveal his face. He wasn't dressed like a mugger or some random passerby. His charcoal overcoat, polished shoes, and discreet earpiece suggested something far more official and far more dangerous. Aubrey Lancaster, he repeated, his tone controlled, almost rehearsed. Aubrey forced herself to stand even though her legs trembled. Who are you? He held up a hand, palm open, as if approaching a frightened animal. My name isn't important. What matters is this. He reached into his coat slowly, pulling out a slim, sealed envelope. You need to read this. Immediately. Aubrey didn't take it. She kept her arms close to her body. Why are you looking for me? The man exhaled like someone on a tight schedule. Because you're in danger. More danger than you understand. Aubrey's pulse pounded painfully in her throat. If Garrett sent you. Your husband didn't send me, he said sharply. If he knew what I'm doing, he'd try to stop it. Her skin chilled. So Garrett wasn't behind this. Then who? The man's eyes flicked toward the street, scanning every moving car. You need to go somewhere public. Somewhere crowded. Don't let anyone isolate you. I have someone coming to meet me, Aubrey managed. He's a lawyer. The man's jaw tightened. Logan Hayes? Yes, I know. That sent a shock through her chest. How did this stranger know Logan's name? Before she could ask, he pushed the envelope toward her again. This has information you need. Don't open it until you're somewhere safe. Not here. I'm not taking anything from you, Aubrey said, voice shaking. I don't know who you are. He hesitated, then unexpectedly his expression softened. I knew your father, he said quietly. Aubrey froze. My father died when I was 13. Yes, he replied, but he died investigating something he wasn't supposed to. He left things unfinished. Things that affect you now, whether you realize it or not. Her breath caught. That's impossible. My father was an accountant. The man shook his head. No, Aubrey, your father was working undercover, and the people he crossed paths with never disappeared. They simply changed fields. Aubrey stared at him, numb, unable to process the words. My whole life I thought. He died because of a car accident, she whispered. That's the story your mother was told, he said. She wasn't lying to you. She was protecting you. The world tilted under her feet. She couldn't breathe. The stranger stepped closer, urgency rising. Garrett isn't just a cheating husband. He's part of something bigger, something your father once tried to expose, and now, through your marriage, you've been pulled into the same current. Aubrey's mind raced, fragments of memories clicking into place. The secretive phone calls, the late-night fires in the fireplace, the people who showed up at the penthouse without explanation. "What does Garrett want from me?" she whispered. The man's face hardened. "Not you. What you unknowingly inherited." Before she could ask what he meant, a black SUV screeched around the corner. The stranger's expression snapped to alarm. "They found me." He shoved the envelope into her hands before she could resist. "Trust no one but Logan Hayes? No one. And remember, your father didn't die by accident." "Wait." Aubrey reached for him, desperate for answers. But he was already backing away, raising his collar as the SUV's doors flew open. He turned once more, eyes locking with hers. "If you want to live, Aubrey, run." Aubrey didn't think. She sprinted down the sidewalk just as two figures jumped out of the SUV. Behind her, a voice shouted, "Get her!" Her lungs burned as panic tore through her. And in that breathless, terror-filled moment, she realized this nightmare had started long before Vienna, long before Garrett. It began the night her father died. Aubrey didn't remember how long she ran, only the concrete beneath her feet and the sound of her own desperate breathing. By the time she stumbled into a crowded midtown plaza, her legs shook so violently she nearly collapsed. The SUV hadn't followed her into the crowd, but the fear clung to her like a second skin. She bent over, hands on her knees, trying to control her breath. The envelope the stranger forced into her hands was still crumpled in her grip. She wanted to throw it away, pretend none of this was real, but the words "your father didn't die by accident" echoed through her bones. A hand touched her shoulder. Aubrey jerked back, heart hammering, but it was Logan. He stepped forward quickly, catching her by the arms before she fell. "Aubrey, hey, look at me. You're okay. I've got you." His voice broke through the panic like a lifeline thrown into raging water. She clung to his forearms, her breath shaking. The SUV, someone chased me," she gasped. "And there was a man. He said he knew my father. Logan, he said my father's death wasn't an accident." Logan's jaw tightened, the warmth in his eyes replaced by something colder. Calculating, protective. "Come with me," he murmured. "We can't talk here." He guided her to a corner of the plaza where the foot traffic was heavy enough to hide them but quiet enough to speak. Aubrey collapsed onto a bench, Logan sitting in front of her, blocking her from view of the street. "Start from the beginning," he said gently. What happened? Aubrey told him everything, meeting the stranger outside St. Clair's, the envelope, the SUV, the impossible accusations about her father. Each word trembled out of her like she was confessing a sin. Logan listened without interrupting, but the tension in his shoulders grew sharper with every sentence. When she finished, he exhaled slowly. "I was afraid of this." Aubrey's stomach dropped. "You knew?" "I suspected," he admitted. "But I didn't know how close it had gotten to you." He leaned closer, lowering his voice. "Garrett isn't just involved in financial crimes. The group he's tied to, your father crossed them years ago. The evidence never surfaced. We thought the trail went cold." She blinked, dizzy. "What does any of this have to do with me?" "Your father left something behind, something Garrett believes you might have. A password, a file, a key, something worth a lot of money and even more leverage." Aubrey swallowed hard. "I don't have anything." "You might," Logan said. "Even if you don't know it." A shiver rolled through her. Her father died when she was 13. She barely remembered anything from that time except grief and confusion. He couldn't possibly be connected to this. But the envelope in her hand felt heavier than lead. Aubrey stared at it, her voice barely a whisper. "Should I open it?" "No," Logan said firmly. "Not here. Not until I'm sure we're safe." His phone buzzed. He checked the screen, then stood immediately. "Come on, we're leaving." "Where?" she asked, stumbling after him. "A place they won't look for you." Within minutes, Logan hailed a cab. He didn't give the driver an address, only instructions. "Take the FDR north. I'll tell you the exit later." Inside the cab, Aubrey pressed her forehead against the cool window, tears slipping down her cheeks. "I don't understand how my life changed this fast," she whispered. Logan's voice softened. "Aubrey, you've been living in the eye of a storm for years. You just didn't know it." "Am I in danger?" "Yes," he said honestly, "but you're not alone anymore." Something in her chest cracked open. Not fear, but relief, a thin thread of hope. But just as she exhaled, the cab turned a corner, and a black SUV appeared in the side mirror. The same one. Logan's eyes snapped to hers. "Aubrey, don't look back." The cab lurched forward as Logan leaned toward the driver. "Don't slow down. Don't look back. Stay with traffic, but don't stop for anything." The driver's eyes widened at the urgency in his tone, but he obeyed. Aubrey sat frozen, staring at her trembling hands. Her life just hours ago, breakfast in the penthouse, mild headache, a canceled appointment, felt like it belonged to someone else. Someone naive. Someone safe. Now she was running from SUVs, coded threats, and men who knew her father's secrets. How am I supposed to survive this?" she whispered. Logan didn't answer immediately. He checked the SUV's position through the mirror. 2 cars behind, not gaining, not losing. A bad sign. "They're observing, not chasing," he murmured, "which means they're waiting for the right moment." Aubrey's chest tightened. "What do they want with me?" "The same thing Garrett wants," Logan said quietly. "Whatever your father hid, Garrett has been trying to crack into certain restricted financial archives for years. But every attempt fails because it requires a security key your father created." "My father wasn't a hacker." "No," Logan agreed. "He was smarter. He was an accountant who saw too much and encrypted what he found. Garrett believes you either inherited access or know where the decryption is hidden." Aubrey shook her head slowly. "That's insane." "Is it?" Logan asked gently. "You found a memory card in your penthouse. A stranger delivered an envelope. Garrett staged a fake affair recording. Vienna was involved. Everything points to a larger plan." The words hit her like slow, sharp needles. "Garrett used Vienna," Aubrey realized. "Used my best friend to distract me." Logan's jaw clenched. "Garrett uses everyone, Aubrey. He's built an entire empire on manipulation and fear. Behind those Wall Street interviews and charity photo ops, he's drowning." Aubrey blinked. "Drowning?" Logan nodded. "Financial investigations, hidden losses, illegal trades disguised as algorithm errors. If this goes public, Garrett loses everything, his company, his freedom. That's why he needs leverage." "And I'm the leverage," she whispered. "You're the key," Logan corrected. The cab swerved onto an exit ramp. Aubrey held her breath until the SUV disappeared from the mirror. Relief washed through her, but it was thin, brief, like a match in the dark. Logan finally leaned back, his expression softening. "We're going somewhere private, somewhere he wouldn't think to look. A friend's brownstone." Aubrey wiped her face. "I can't believe Garrett could do this. I thought he just didn't love me anymore. I thought I wasn't enough." Logan turned to her fully, his voice firm. "Aubrey, listen to me. Garrett didn't cheat because you weren't enough. He cheated because you were becoming too aware, too questioning, too close to finding what he hid." The realization landed like a blow. She wasn't abandoned. She was silenced. Tears spilled down her cheeks, the quiet kind that didn't burn but somehow hurt more. Logan reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away. She didn't, his hand wrapped gently around hers, steady, warm, grounding. The first kindness she'd felt in days. "You're not alone," he repeated. Aubrey swallowed hard. "I don't know if I'm strong enough for this." "You are," Logan said. "I've seen you fight before. You just don't remember what you're capable of." The cab pulled into a quiet residential street lined with brownstones, far from the noise of Manhattan's towers. Logan paid the driver, ushered her out, and guided her to a warm light glowing behind stained glass windows. But just as they reached the steps, a vibration buzzed in Aubrey's pocket. Her phone. A message from an unknown number. "You can run, Aubrey, but you're already too late." Aubrey's breath caught. Logan's face turned to stone, because attached to the message was a photo of her penthouse bedroom. From an angle no one had access to. Someone had been inside again. Someone watching. Someone waiting. And beneath the photo was a final sentence that made Aubrey's blood turn ice. "You should have opened the envelope." Rain began to fall. Thin at first, then heavier, soaking the quiet street as Aubrey and Logan rushed up the brownstone steps. Logan knocked once. The door opened immediately, revealing a woman in her early 50s with silver-streaked hair and intelligent eyes. "Come in," she said without hesitation. "You're safe here." Aubrey didn't know her, but Logan greeted her by name. "Claire, thank you. We won't stay long." Claire gave Aubrey a sympathetic nod. "You look like you haven't taken a full breath in days. Sit, both of you." Inside, the brownstone felt warm and lived in. Book-lined walls, a soft lamp glow, the smell of cinnamon tea. It contrasted sharply with the cold marble emptiness of the penthouse. Aubrey felt herself thaw just a little. But the picture on her phone, the one taken from inside her bedroom, kept circling her thoughts like a hawk waiting to strike. "Logan," she whispered shakily. "They were in my home again." "How?" "The building has 24/7 security." "Security Garrett controls," Logan replied. "Don't assume anything in your life was ever private." The truth sat heavy on her chest. Claire returned with tea, placing the cup gently in Aubrey's hands. "Drink this. You're in shock." Aubrey obeyed, grateful for the warmth spreading through her fingers. After a moment, Logan sat across from her, his voice lower than before. "Aubrey, I need to tell you something you should have known years ago." Her breath hitched. "About my father?" "About everything." He leaned forward, hands clasped, jaw tight like he'd been carrying the weight of this truth for too long. "Years ago, before your father died, he worked with a specialized investigative team, people who quietly tracked financial corruption. Secret accounts, shell companies, hidden transactions meant to manipulate the market." Aubrey stared. "My father? That's impossible." Logan shook his head. "He wasn't just an accountant, Aubrey. He was brilliant, one of the best forensic auditors in the country. He could see patterns other people missed, and he discovered something dangerous, something connected to the same group Garrett works with now." Her pulse thudded in her ears. "What did he find?" "A ghost ledger," Logan said. "A hidden financial trail proving millions were being siphoned from clean corporations and funneled into offshore accounts. If exposed, it would have taken down powerful people." "And you think Garrett is part of that?" Aubrey whispered. Logan didn't answer. His silence was confirmation. Aubrey felt the room sway. Claire steadied her shoulder. "But what does this have to do with me?" Aubrey whispered. "I was a kid." "Your father knew he was being watched," Logan said gently. "So he encrypted the final piece of evidence, a digital key, and hid it somewhere he believed only someone he trusted could find." Aubrey blinked, heart racing. "And you think he left it for me?" "Not directly," Logan said. "But something in your possession, something you've carried for years, may be tied to it." Aubrey's mind raced through childhood memories. Nothing stood out. No strange box, no secret note, no final message. "But I don't have anything," she insisted. "Nothing like that." Claire interjected softly. "Sometimes the most important things hide in plain sight." Aubrey's hand drifted unconsciously to her bag, where the memory card from the penthouse rested, and the unopened envelope the stranger forced into her palm. Her father, Garrett, the underground network, Vienna's involvement, the break-ins, everything tangled together into a web she never asked to enter, but was now trapped in. "There's more," Logan said, his tone cutting through her spiraling thoughts. "Garrett didn't marry you for love alone. He married you because he believed your father passed something on through you. Access. A link. A code only you could unlock." The words ripped through her like a blade. All those nights Garrett held her. All those reassurances. All those apologies. All fake. All calculated. Aubrey's chest caved, tears slipping silently down her cheeks. Claire squeezed her hand. "None of this is your fault." But Aubrey barely heard her, because as she looked between Logan, Claire, and the envelope in her lap, she felt the truth rising like a storm tide. She wasn't just a betrayed wife. She was an heir to a secret powerful enough to destroy empires. Aubrey sat frozen on the edge of Claire's couch, her hands trembling around the unopened envelope. Everything she thought she knew, her childhood, her marriage, her father's death, was shattered. Logan paced in front of the fireplace, his jaw tight, concern carved deeply into his expression. Claire watched them both carefully, arms crossed, her mind clearly processing every detail. Finally, she said, "You can't stay here long. Garrett's people will try to track your phone, your cards, anything tied to your identity. We need to move quickly." Aubrey swallowed hard. "I don't understand any of this. Why now? Why would Garrett suddenly push everything to the edge? The affair, the recording, the threats. Why now?" Logan stopped pacing. "Because his company is collapsing behind the scenes. He's losing investors and there's an active investigation circling him." "How do you know that?" Aubrey asked. He hesitated, then said quietly, "Because Eleanor Bishop told me." Aubrey blinked. "Eleanor? The billionaire investor? The woman from Forbes magazine?" Logan nodded. She's been watching Garrett for months, and she has her own history with the group he's tied to. When she learned your name was linked to some of the restricted folders Garrett tried to breach, she reached out to me. Aubrey stared. Why you? Logan hesitated again, but this time his eyes softened. Because I knew your father, he said. Not just as a colleague in the legal field, but as a friend. He trusted me, and when he died, I promised him something. A cold breath escaped her lips. What promise? That if anything ever resurfaced, anything connected to the ledger or the key, I'd protect you. Aubrey felt the room tilt. Her father had trusted Logan. Logan had been watching from afar, and Garrett had married her with ulterior motives. The betrayal dug deeper than she imagined. Claire stepped forward. Eleanor wants to meet with you, Aubrey. She believes your father's key may be the missing piece to exposing the entire network. But she also wants to help you, personally and legally. She knows the system, the money, the leverage. Aubrey's breath hitched. Why would someone like her care? Claire's expression softened. Because she was once in your shoes, married to a man who built an empire on lies. She escaped, barely. She's been exposing men like Garrett ever since. Aubrey wiped her eyes. So what now? Logan knelt in front of her, looking up at her gently but firmly. Now, you decide whether to hide or fight. She shook her head. I don't know if I'm strong enough. That's what every woman says before she stands up, Claire replied. Aubrey glanced down at the envelope. Her hands shook as she tore it open. Inside was a single photograph. Not of Garrett, not of Vienna, not of her penthouse. It was a picture of her father, sitting at his old desk, looking directly at the camera. Behind him, pinned on the wall, was a corkboard covered in documents and red thread connections. But the most shocking part wasn't the photo itself. It was the handwritten message across the bottom. If you're seeing this, they've found you. Trust the man who carries my name in his ledger. Aubrey frowned. What does that mean? Logan exhaled slowly. It means your father left instructions. The ledger isn't just financial records. It contains names, safe contacts, people he trusted. And you're one of them? She whispered. Logan nodded once. Yes. Claire stepped aside, revealing a leather briefcase she'd brought from the other room. Eleanor sent this. She said you would need it before the next step. Aubrey opened the case with trembling fingers. Inside were a new phone, emergency cash, a fake ID in her likeness, and a plane ticket to Los Angeles under a different name. What is all this? Aubrey whispered. Logan answered softly. Protection, resources, and a path to start fighting back. But I can't just run. You're not running, he said. You're repositioning, like your father did. Aubrey stared at the briefcase, then at Logan, then at the photograph of a father she suddenly realized she barely knew. Tears filled her eyes, but not from fear this time. Something else stirred inside her. Resolve. She straightened her spine, her voice steadied. Okay, she said. Tell me the next step. Logan exchanged a glance with Claire, and for the first time that night, he smiled. Because Aubrey Lancaster, not the betrayed wife, not the broken woman, not the victim, had just awakened, and that meant the real battle could begin. But someone outside was already watching the brownstone, waiting for her next move. The brownstone grew quiet after Claire left to double-check the security sensors. Aubrey sat at the table with the briefcase open in front of her, staring at the contents like they were pieces of someone else's life. A fake ID, emergency cash, a plane ticket booked under the name Elena Hart. It was surreal. She'd spent years hosting charity dinners, prepping Garrett's investor pitch decks, and scheduling Vienna's birthday surprises. Now she was planning an escape. Logan returned from the window, where he'd been watching the street below. They're out there, he said quietly. 2 men, pretending to be waiting for a rideshare. They've been circling the block for the last 15 minutes. Aubrey tightened her grip on the photograph of her father. Are they watching for me? Yes, Logan said. But they won't make a move yet. They're waiting for instructions. From Garrett? Or someone above him? That realization chilled her more than the December air seeping through the window panes. Logan sat across from her. His voice softened, but the tension in his posture never relaxed. We don't have much time. If those men report seeing you with me, Garrett will know you found a connection. We need to gather everything we can before we move. Aubrey swallowed hard. Gather what? Evidence, Logan said. your father's encrypted trail, Garrett's financial crimes, Vienna's involvement, the memory card from your penthouse, and whatever is inside that envelope. Aubrey reached into her coat pocket and pulled out the small memory card, the one she found in the black box outside her bedroom. She placed it between them on the table. Logan didn't touch it. Not yet. It could be booby-trapped with malware or tracking software. Aubrey inhaled shakily. This feels unreal. 48 hours ago, the biggest stress in my life was whether Garrett would make it home for dinner. Now I'm being hunted. Logan leaned forward, his eyes gentle. You've been hunted for a long time, Aubrey. You just didn't know it. That truth landed heavy, like a stone dropping into dark water. She wiped a tear from her cheek. What about Vienna? Was she part of this too? Or just Garrett's toy? Logan's expression hardened. Vienna is deeper than you think. She's been funneling information to Garrett for months. Access to your emails, your schedule, your health appointments. She even monitored your location when you traveled. Aubrey's stomach twisted. Her best friend, her confidant, her betrayer. How could I not see it? She whispered. Because you're a good person, Logan said simply. People like Vienna weaponize kindness. They hide their envy behind affection. Aubrey pressed her palms together to stop them from shaking. I want to fight back, Logan, but I don't know how. You will, he said, and I'll teach you. Step by step. He reached into the briefcase and pulled out a slim laptop with a clean operating system. Let's start with the basics. We're going to reconstruct your digital history. Everything you've emailed, filed, or archived might hold clues about your father. Aubrey hesitated. I haven't looked at anything from my childhood in years. Then it's time. He booted up the laptop. Claire returned, locking the front door behind her. Street's clear for now, she said. But we don't have more than an hour. Logan nodded and turned the screen toward Aubrey. Start by logging into your old email, the one you made in high school. A chill ran through her. I haven't used that account in 15 years. Exactly, Logan said, which means nobody else thought to look there. Aubrey typed slowly, the password coming back to her like an echo from another life. When the inbox opened, thousands of unread messages flooded the screen. Then she saw it. A single unread message pinned at the top, dated 1 week before her father died. The subject line made her throat close. If anything happens to me, open this. Aubrey's hands flew to her mouth as tears welled in her eyes. Logan whispered, Aubrey? Click it. Her finger hovered over the mouse. But before she could open the message, Claire's voice burst from the living room. Logan? Aubrey? Move! They found the back entrance. Aubrey's heart seized. The men were already inside the building. Claire's shout sliced through the brownstone like a blade. Aubrey leapt to her feet, the laptop sliding off her knees. Logan reacted instantly. He grabbed her wrist and pulled her behind him, moving toward the back hallway. Claire, stall them, Logan called out. I'll do more than stall them, Claire muttered, grabbing a metal baton from behind the bookshelf like she'd done this before. A loud crash erupted from the first floor. Another. Then the unmistakable thud of boots. Aubrey's heart pounded so violently she could feel it in her teeth. Logan, what do they want? She whispered. Not you, he said. What you're carrying. He meant the memory card, the envelope, the email, the digital key hidden in her father's last message. They wanted it all. Logan shoved open a narrow service door tucked behind a wooden panel. This way. Aubrey followed, her breath shallow as they slipped into a dark stairwell. She could hear the invaders storming through the living room upstairs, furniture scraping, Claire shouting, heavy footsteps pounding. Aubrey's legs trembled, but she forced herself to keep moving. Down the stairs, around the corner, past pipes that groaned with the winter chill. Logan finally stopped at a metal door leading into an alley. I'll go first, he whispered. Stay right behind me. He pushed the door open an inch and peered outside. Then, go, now. Aubrey dashed after him. The alley was narrow, slick with rain, and half lit by a flickering street lamp. Logan grabbed her hand and pulled her toward the main road. Behind them, the brownstone door slammed open. There, a male voice. Then another. Get the girl. Aubrey's pulse exploded. She and Logan sprinted down the alley, turning sharply as headlights surged toward them. A black SUV. Another one. Logan, there's no way out. Yes, there is. Jump. He pulled her off the sidewalk just as the SUV roared past, missing them by inches. They tumbled into a lower service entrance near a laundromat. The steel grate clanged behind them as Logan slammed it shut. Darkness swallowed them. Aubrey trembled violently, her breath fogging in the cold underground air. This is insane," she whispered. "I can't live like this. I can't run forever." Logan cupped her shoulders, steadying her. His voice was firm but gentle. "Aubrey, this ends soon. And when it ends, Garrett and everyone tied to him will fall. But we need to follow through with your legal steps." "Legal?" she choked. "I'm barely staying alive. That's why we need to hit him from both sides, legally and in the shadows. Tomorrow morning, you're filing for divorce." Aubrey froze. "I thought we were running." "We are," Logan said. "But we're not running from the law. We're using it. Garrett expects fear. He expects chaos. He expects you broken." Aubrey swallowed. "So what do we do?" Logan reached into his coat and pulled out a thick folder. "This," he said, "is everything Eleanor Bishop has gathered on Garrett Hollingsworth. Fraud, laundering, illegal trades, enough to bury him, but we need to trigger the legal process before he destroys evidence." Aubrey took the folder with shaking hands. "You want me to confront him in court?" "Yes," Logan said. "A public divorce hearing. Garrett won't be able to hide. Judges, clerks, lawyers, too many eyes. He can't touch you there." Aubrey blinked, tears burning her eyes. "I never wanted revenge. I just wanted a life." "I know," he said softly, "but he chose war. Now we choose justice." She exhaled shakily. "What if I fall apart?" "You won't," Logan said. "You're your father's daughter." Thunder rumbled above them. The storm had thickened, mirroring the chaos around them. Footsteps echoed again, closer this time. Logan grabbed her hand. "Time to move." Aubrey tucked the folder against her chest, her father's photograph still inside her coat. "Logan, what if they catch us?" He looked at her, eyes steady. "Then we fight harder." A crash sounded above. The men were forcing open the grate. Aubrey gasped. Logan pulled her down another tunnel, voice low. "Stay close. The next turn decides everything." The next morning, Aubrey stood outside the New York County Supreme Court, her breath visible in the frigid air. The courthouse loomed above her like a stone giant, massive pillars, sharp steps, a symbol of justice she'd never imagined needing. She wrapped her coat tighter around herself, not just from the cold, but from the weight of what she was about to do. "Remember," Logan murmured beside her, "public space, cameras everywhere. They won't try anything here." Aubrey nodded, though her legs felt unsteady. She clutched the folder Eleanor had prepared. Evidence, financial records, screenshots, witness statements. Enough to send Garrett's empire crashing. But fear still gnawed at her. She wasn't afraid of losing the case. She was afraid of seeing him. Seeing the man she used to love. Seeing the man who tore her life apart. Seeing the stranger beneath the husband she thought she knew. Inside, the courthouse buzzed with people. Lawyers in suits, families arguing softly, tired clerks carrying stacks of documents. It was raw, human, chaotic. Nothing like the polished world of penthouses and Wall Street galas Garrett lived in. Logan guided her to the clerk's window. "Name?" the clerk asked without looking up. "Aubrey Lancaster Hollingsworth," she said, summoning every ounce of strength to keep her voice steady. When the clerk finally lifted her eyes, recognition flickered. Aubrey's face had been in society magazines beside Garrett for years. "You're filing for divorce?" "Yes." "Grounds?" Aubrey hesitated. The list was long. Infidelity, manipulation, financial deception, conspiracy, emotional cruelty. But she uttered only one word: betrayal. The clerk nodded slowly, stamped the form, and slid it back to her. "Good luck, Mrs. Hollingsworth." Aubrey swallowed the bitterness rising in her throat. "It's Miss Lancaster." Logan placed a supportive hand on her back, guiding her toward the security checkpoint. "You did it," he whispered. "That was the hardest part." She almost believed him. Almost. They stepped into the main rotunda, and that's when she heard it, her name. "Aubrey?" Her blood iced over. Garrett stood at the entrance to the rotunda, perfectly groomed, perfectly composed, perfectly monstrous. His smile was warm, false warmth dripping like poison. He walked toward her with the calm confidence of a man who believed the world bowed to him. "What are you doing here, love?" he asked softly, as if they were sharing a private joke. "You should have called. Running to court is so dramatic." Aubrey stiffened. "Don't call me that." He chuckled under his breath. "Still emotional, I see." Logan stepped between them. "She's not alone anymore, Garrett. And she's not emotional. She's filing." Garrett's smile faltered for a split second before he regained it. He circled Logan like a predator sizing up prey. Finally, he looked at Aubrey again. "You're making a mistake," he said quietly. "You don't have the resources to fight me. You don't have the connections. You don't even have your own income anymore. You're fragile." Aubrey clenched her jaw. "You're raw." "Am I?" Garrett stepped closer, lowering his voice so only she could hear. "I saw the brownstone last night." Aubrey's breath stopped. "I know whose house you fled to. And I know who helped you. Tell me, darling, how long have you been planning this little rebellion?" Logan stepped forward, but Aubrey touched his arm lightly. She faced Garrett directly. "For someone who claims to be the smartest man in the room," she said, "you notice things far too late." Garrett's expression cracked. Just a flicker. Barely perceptible. But enough. He leaned in, whispering through clenched teeth, "You have no idea what storm you've walked into." Aubrey's eyes hardened. "No, you have no idea what storm I've survived." Gasps rippled through the rotunda. People were watching now. Lawyers, journalists, civilians. A millionaire husband being confronted by his wife was irresistible drama. Garrett noticed the cameras. His mask slipped back into charm, but the damage was done. Aubrey turned away from him. Logan followed, protective as a shadow. As they walked toward the courtroom hallway, Aubrey's phone buzzed with a new message. She braced herself for another threat, but instead, the text read, "I'm in the building. Don't let him see me yet. Eleanor." Aubrey's breath caught, because with Eleanor Bishop on her side, this wasn't just a divorce anymore. It was the beginning of Garrett Hollingsworth's public destruction. Aubrey followed Logan down the courthouse hallway, her heart pounding as Eleanor's message echoed in her mind. "I'm in the building. Don't let him see me yet." Eleanor Bishop, one of the most powerful investors in the country, had come here. For her, for this moment, for this battle. Aubrey couldn't help but wonder. What exactly did Eleanor know about Garrett that she hadn't yet shared? They stopped in a quiet waiting room. Logan shut the door behind them and lowered the blinds. Aubrey sank into a chair, feeling the adrenaline slowly seep out of her bones. "You handled him well," Logan said, sitting beside her. "You didn't let him intimidate you." Aubrey let out a shaky breath. "I've spent years letting him intimidate me. Not today." A soft knock interrupted them. Logan tensed, but a moment later, the door opened, and Eleanor Bishop stepped inside. She wore a tailored black coat over a navy pantsuit, her silver hair swept into a low chignon, her presence commanding enough to shift the air in the room. Her expression softened when she saw Aubrey. "Miss Lancaster," Eleanor said, extending her hand. "I'm glad you came, and I'm sorry it had to be under these circumstances." Aubrey stood quickly. "Thank you for everything. I don't even know how you got involved." Eleanor's eyes flicked toward Logan. "I've been watching Garrett Hollingsworth for a long time. Men like him climb fast, burn bright, and destroy everything around them when they fall. I refused to invest in his company because I recognized his type instantly." She took a seat, crossing her legs. "When I learned about the connection to your father, I knew things were about to get worse." Aubrey swallowed. "My father, what did you know about him?" Eleanor nodded slowly, as if choosing each word carefully. "Your father worked with a network of forensic analysts, quietly, invisibly. He was brilliant, and he died too suddenly, too conveniently, in the middle of uncovering something that threatened powerful people." Aubrey felt her throat tighten. "Then why didn't anyone say anything? Why didn't anyone tell us?" "Because the people your father investigated don't leave trails," Eleanor said, "but they leave widows and orphans." A chill moved down Aubrey's spine. Logan leaned forward. "Eleanor, tell her what you told me." Eleanor's sharp eyes met Aubrey's. "You are in danger, but you are also holding the weapon Garrett fears most. Your father's digital key would expose every illegal transfer, every rigged investment, every hidden offshore account connected to his network." Aubrey's heart raced. "But I don't have anything." Eleanor smiled faintly. "You do. You just haven't unlocked it yet." Aubrey reached into her bag and pulled out the envelope, the memory card, and the printed email she hadn't been able to open. Eleanor's gaze sharpened. "Those pieces were placed in your path because someone knew your father's work would resurface, and they knew Garrett would come after it." "And Vienna?" Aubrey whispered. "Was she part of all this too?" Eleanor's lips curved in a cold, knowing smirk. Vienna Reed sold information about you for designer handbags and proximity to power. A cheap price for a friend's betrayal. Aubrey felt her eyes burn again, but this time from anger, not heartbreak. So what do we do now? She asked. Eleanor leaned back, her tone turning strategic. We hid him publicly. Garrett thrives in secrecy. His reputation is his currency. A single crack in that facade, especially during his upcoming gala appearance, will send investors running. Aubrey's breath caught. The Beverly Hills Charity Gala? Yes, Eleanor said. It's the perfect battleground. Logan added, every major investor, journalist, and CEO will be there. If we reveal the first piece of evidence publicly, Garrett won't survive it. Aubrey's pulse picked up. You mean, expose him? At the gala? Eleanor's eyes glinted. Expose him, ruin him, and free yourself once and for all. Aubrey hesitated. But what about the men chasing me? What about the people after this key? Eleanor placed a reassuring hand over hers. You'll have protection and leverage. Fear is only a weapon if you let it silence you. Aubrey inhaled slowly. No more silence. No more shrinking. No more being Garrett's collateral. She lifted her chin. Then tell me, she said, voice steady. What's the plan? Eleanor smiled, the kind of smile that promised war. First, she said, we gather everything he tried to hide. Then we take it all to Beverly Hills. The next 48 hours moved like a storm. Fast, disorienting, and relentless. Aubrey barely recognized her own reflection anymore. Not just because of exhaustion or fear or heartbreak, but because something inside her had begun to shift. She wasn't the quiet, compliant wife Garrett controlled. She wasn't the desperate friend clinging to Vienna's false affection. She was becoming someone else. Someone she hadn't allowed herself to be in years. And Eleanor saw it. Sit, Eleanor instructed as they entered a private suite inside a discreet styling studio off Fifth Avenue. We need to prepare you for the gala. But before the hair and makeup, we prepare the woman. Aubrey lowered into the velvet chair. I don't know if clothes and lipstick can fix this. Eleanor arched an eyebrow. We're not fixing anything. We're revealing who you were before Garrett dimmed your light. The words struck Aubrey deeply. Eleanor opened a garment bag and pulled out a gown the color of midnight. Simple, elegant, powerful. The kind of dress that didn't seek attention, but commanded it. This isn't about beauty, Eleanor said. It's about presence. Stylists swept in, soft hands, gentle movements, murmured instructions. They pinned her hair into a subtle cascading wave, curated makeup that emphasized her eyes rather than masked them, and chose jewelry that was understated but rich. Nothing screamed wealth. Nothing screamed fragility. It whispered quiet authority. For the first time in years, Aubrey felt like she was putting on armor. Logan appeared at the doorway, leaning on the frame, watching her transformation with a soft, unreadable expression. You look strong. Aubrey met his gaze in the mirror. I don't feel strong. You don't have to feel it, he said. You just have to be it. Strength is a choice first. She exhaled shakily. And fear? Fear is the tax you pay for becoming someone new. Aubrey looked at herself again. Not the hair, not the dress, not the makeup, the eyes. There was a flicker she hadn't seen in her reflection since she was a child. Curiosity, bravery, a spark of rebellion she had buried to survive Garrett's emotional manipulation. For years she adjusted, compromised, softened herself into silence to not provoke him. Now? The silence was dead. She had killed it herself. Eleanor returned with a small leather pouch. This, she said, you keep on you at all times. Aubrey opened it. Inside were a burner phone, a tiny encrypted USB drive, a list of contacts, each name handwritten, and a small metal token shaped like a falcon. She frowned. What's this? Your father's symbol, Eleanor said. His private insignia. Anyone who truly worked with him will recognize it. The weight of the token settled like gravity against Aubrey's palm. My father wasn't just an accountant, she whispered. He was something else. A truth seeker, Eleanor said. And now, so are you. Before Aubrey could respond, her phone buzzed. It was a location pin from Claire. The evidence packet was complete. Everything they needed to destroy Garrett. Financial trails, fake invoices, encrypted transfers, hidden offshore accounts, was compiled and ready for the Beverly Hills Gala. Aubrey's pulse flickered. This could ruin him, she whispered. It will, Logan corrected. But only if you walk into that ballroom not as his broken wife, but as the woman he underestimated. Aubrey stood, smoothing the gown over her hips. She felt different, taller, steadier. Not because of the dress, but because of the mission. "You're sure he won't see it coming?" she asked. Eleanor smiled, a razor-sharp, victorious smile. "Garrett sees many things," she said, "but he has never in his entire life seen you." Aubrey held the Falcon token one more time before slipping it into her clutch. She wasn't running anymore. She wasn't hiding. She wasn't shrinking to fit inside Garrett's shadow. She was stepping into the light on her terms. But as she headed toward the elevator, Logan caught her wrist gently. "Aubrey, one more thing." She turned. His voice dropped, serious, almost fearful. "Whatever happens at that gala, don't leave my side, not even for a second." The black Mercedes eased through the illuminated driveway of the Beverly Regent Hotel, the epicenter of wealth, ego, and high society theatrics. Aubrey watched the glittering building rise before them. Golden chandeliers, paparazzi flashes, gowns that shimmered like liquid metal. Beverly Hills in December always felt like a stage built for the richest sins. But tonight, this stage belonged to her. The moment the car stopped, Logan stepped out first, scanning the surroundings with a soldier's alertness. When he opened Aubrey's door, she emerged in the midnight gown Eleanor had chosen, strong, regal, untouchable. The camera flashes immediately turned toward her. Reporters froze, some whispered, a few gasped. Aubrey Lancaster, missing wife of millionaire Garrett Hollingsworth, had entered the battlefield. "Don't look overwhelmed," Logan murmured, offering his arm. "They feed on fear." She steadied herself and took his arm. "I'm not afraid of them." "Good," he said. "Save your fear for what happens after we walk inside." Aubrey didn't ask what he meant. She could feel the electricity humming through the air. Something was coming. Something big. Inside the grand ballroom, hundreds of elites mingled beneath crystal chandeliers. Laughter, clinking glasses, soft music, an atmosphere of luxury masking the sharp scent of ambition. And standing near the stage, illuminated by the spotlight, was Garrett. Tall, immaculate, confident. Vienna stood beside him in a gold sequined dress, plastering on a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Aubrey felt her stomach twist, but it wasn't pain. It was fire. Garrett froze when he saw her. His expression slipped so quickly it was almost satisfying. Shock, calculation, anger, panic, charm. "Aubrey," he murmured under his breath, lips barely moving. "Where the hell have you been?" She didn't answer. She didn't have to. Because right then, Eleanor Bishop entered through the opposite door, commanding the room like a general arriving on the battlefield. She spotted Aubrey, nodded once, and moved toward the cluster of high-profile investors waiting for her. Vienna broke the tension first, her voice overly sweet. "Oh my God, Aubrey, you look stunning. I didn't know you were coming." Aubrey eyed her coolly. "You never know where I'll be anymore, do you?" Vienna's smile twitched. Garrett attempted to regain dominance. "We should talk privately, right now." Logan stepped between them instantly. "No private conversations." Garrett gave him a venomous smile. "Still inserting yourself into things that aren't your business, Logan? Protecting a friend isn't an intrusion," Logan replied. "It's loyalty." Garrett scoffed. "She doesn't need your loyalty. She needs to come home." Aubrey's voice cut through the tension, steady, sharp. "I'm not going anywhere with you." The guests nearby pretended not to stare, but every ear tilted toward them. Garrett leaned in, whispering, "You're making a scene." "No," she whispered back. "You made the scene. I'm ending it." Before Garrett could respond, the ballroom lights dimmed. A spotlight hit the stage. A voice echoed through the speakers. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our keynote speaker, Garrett Hollingsworth." Aubrey's pulse quickened. This was the moment. The exact moment Eleanor had chosen. The moment Garrett's carefully constructed empire would begin to crumble. Garrett adjusted his tuxedo, smoothed his hair, and flashed his trademark smile as he walked to the stage. Vienna followed closely, like a golden shadow. Aubrey and Logan slipped toward Eleanor, who stood near a tall floral arrangement, blending into the room's elite power circle. "You're right on time," Eleanor said. She handed Aubrey a sleek, encrypted tablet. "This is the first strike." Aubrey swallowed. "Are you sure?" "Yes," Eleanor said. "Press play when I tell you." Garrett reached the podium. The room hushed. Investors leaned forward. Cameras flashed. He began speaking, polished, confident, spinning a narrative of success and growth, lies wrapped in charm. Eleanor nodded. "Aubrey," she whispered, "now." Aubrey tapped the screen. The tablet connected to the ballroom's central projector. The lights flickered. The music cut. The giant screen behind Garrett blinked, then displayed the first encrypted file from her father's archive. Illegal transfers, offshore accounts, Garrett's forged signatures, Vienna's involvement. Gasps erupted. People rose from their chairs, phones shot up, whispers stormed through the room like a tidal wave. Garrett turned, eyes widening with horror. He had lost control. In front of the world. His gaze snapped back to Aubrey. Rage, desperation, terror blending into something feral. "Aubrey," he shouted across the ballroom. "What have you done?" Aubrey lifted her chin, her voice calm and clear. "I told you, I'm not afraid of you anymore." Chaos detonated inside the Beverly Regent ballroom. Garrett stood frozen under the blinding spotlight, the enormous screen behind him flashing line after line of damning financial transfers, illegal offshore accounts, falsified tax statements, encrypted correspondence tied to shell corporations. His name appeared on every document like a signature of guilt. The audience erupted. "Is this real? Oh my God, those numbers, he lied to the board. Call compliance, call legal, call everyone." Cameras pivoted toward him. Investors rose from their seats. PR assistants scrambled toward the exits like rats abandoning a sinking ship. Vienna clutched Garrett's arm. "Garrett, say something." "Fix it. Fix it," he hissed at her. "You were supposed to keep tabs on her." Vienna's jaw dropped. "Me? You said she was harmless." Aubrey stepped forward with Logan and Eleanor flanking her like two guardians. She didn't raise her voice, but the room quieted around her anyway. "This is only the beginning," she said. Garrett whirled toward her, fury burning through his carefully constructed mask. "You have no idea what you've done." Aubrey held his gaze. "I protected the truth, something you've never done in your life." More files flooded the screen. Emails from Garrett to Vienna ordering cleanups, payments labeled as consulting, digital timestamps showing meetings with suspicious shell corporations. And then a final image appeared, a video thumbnail. Vienna's face went white. "Turn it off," she whispered. "Turn it off." But Eleanor simply folded her arms. "This is necessary." The video played. The recording showed Garrett and Vienna in the penthouse bedroom, but not the salacious footage they had staged. This was a different clip, one where Garrett and Vienna discussed coercing an investor by using compromising footage. Vienna bragged about watching Aubrey break slowly. Garrett praised her for keeping Aubrey isolated. The room gasped. Vienna covered her mouth in horror. This was her downfall too. I didn't know this would get out." She stammered. "Garrett, you said." Garrett shoved her away. "Shut up. You're the reason this is happening." Vienna stumbled, heels scraping against the marble floor. She looked around at the crowd, people she once charmed, flirted with, impressed. Their faces had turned cold, disgusted. "Please," she whispered, "someone believe me." No one did. For the first time in her life, Vienna Reed was invisible. Logan stepped forward. "Security is on its way." "Garrett, you're done." Garrett pointed at Logan, spittle flying. You think you can destroy me? You've always been jealous." "This isn't jealousy," Logan said calmly. "It's justice." Garrett lunged, but security guards grabbed him instantly. He thrashed like a trapped animal, screaming Aubrey's name, calling her every insult he could form. But his words had no power anymore. Not here. Not in the light. Aubrey approached slowly, trembling but unbroken. Garrett's eyes locked onto hers, wild, desperate, furious. "You think you've won?" he snarled. "You're nothing without me. Nothing." Aubrey's voice came out steady as stone. "I was nothing with you. That's the difference." Gasps rippled again. Garrett roared in rage, trying to break free from the guards. "I'll bury you. Eleanor lifted her phone. "Actually, you won't." She pressed a button. Within seconds, dozens of journalists' phones chimed simultaneously. Eleanor had just released the files publicly. Garrett's face drained of color. His empire wasn't just collapsing. It was gone. Security dragged him out of the ballroom as camera flashes lit the air like lightning. Vienna sank to the floor, mascara streaking down her cheeks. "Aubrey, please," she begged. "I can help you. I know things." Aubrey looked down at her, a woman who once pretended to be her sister, a woman who stabbed her in the heart. "You helped him ruin lives," Aubrey said softly. "Now face the cost." Vienna reached out for her ankle, but Aubrey stepped back. Logan placed a hand on Aubrey's back, grounding her. "It's over," he whispered. Aubrey glanced toward the stage, where Garrett had stood moments earlier as king of the room. Now, he was gone. His throne shattered. his kingdom in ruins. And for the first time in years, Aubrey breathed freely. The ballroom slowly emptied as the scandal washed through Beverly Hills like a tidal wave. Reporters hurried outside to broadcast the fall of Garrett Hollingsworth. Investors whispered frantically into phones, and guests slipped out with wide eyes and shaken expressions. But Aubrey remained still in the center of the chaos, her hands trembling as the adrenaline ebbed. Logan stepped beside her. "You did it." Aubrey's lips parted, but no words came out. She felt weightless, hollow, stunned. Was this what victory felt like? A strange, aching emptiness where pain used to live? Eleanor approached, her heels clicking softly against the marble. "You handled yourself with incredible grace," she said. "Your father would be proud." The mention of her father hit Aubrey with a wave of quiet grief. He had been gone for so many years, yet his shadow had guided this entire storm. Aubrey inhaled shakily. "Is it truly over?" Eleanor and Logan exchanged a look, one that wasn't entirely comforting. "Garrett's finished publicly," Eleanor said. "Legally, financially, socially, his empire will collapse within days. He'll be arraigned. There are too many witnesses, too many files, too much proof." Aubrey exhaled, relief spreading through her slowly. But Logan's expression stayed tense. "Aubrey," he said gently, "Garrett wasn't the only one in that network. He was a cog in a much larger machine. Some of the people he worked with, they won't be happy." Fear pricked her skin again. "Are you saying I'm still in danger?" "Not the same danger," Logan replied. "But there are people who may want to know how much you inherited from your father." Eleanor stepped closer, placing a reassuring hand on Aubrey's arm. "You're under my protection now," she said firmly. "And I don't lose people." The warmth of the promise soothed some of Aubrey's worry. But as they guided her toward a quieter corner of the ballroom, Aubrey noticed something odd. A man in a gray suit standing near the exit, watching her intently. Not with anger, not with recognition, but with purpose. He didn't move, he didn't speak, he simply observed. "Logan," she whispered, nodding subtly. "Who was that?" Logan followed her gaze, his entire body tensed. "He wasn't at the gala earlier." Eleanor narrowed her eyes. "Security?" "No," Logan said. "He looks federal." The man in the gray suit gave a tiny nod, as if he could hear them, then disappeared into the crowd. A chill slid down Aubrey's spine. Eleanor placed a calm hand on her shoulder. "We expected this. When one empire falls, others grow curious." Aubrey pressed a hand to her forehead. "I just wanted to expose Garrett. I didn't want to open some hidden war." "You didn't open anything," Eleanor said. "Your father did. You're just finishing it." Before Aubrey could respond, Vienna's voice rose shakily from across the room. "Aubrey, please." Vienna was still on the floor, mascara smeared, her dress torn slightly where she'd fallen. Her desperation was palpable, vibrating through the air. Aubrey walked toward her, slowly, cautiously. Vienna reached for her hand. "I'm sorry," she sobbed. "Garrett used me. I didn't know." Aubrey pulled her hand back, not cruelly, but with finality. "You knew," Aubrey said softly. "You always knew." Vienna's face crumpled. "You were my friend," Aubrey continued, voice trembling. "You were supposed to protect me, and instead you sold my pain to the highest bidder." Vienna shook her head, crying harder. "Please, please don't let this be the end of me." Aubrey swallowed. She felt pity, yes, but forgiveness? Forgiveness was a river Vienna had burned the bridge to. "This is where I let you go," Aubrey said quietly, and she walked away. Vienna collapsed into uncontrollable sobs. No one comforted her. No one helped her. The glittering world she adored was already shutting its doors in her face. Logan placed a comforting hand at Aubrey's back as she returned to him. "You handled that with dignity." Aubrey nodded, eyes burning. "I didn't want to destroy her. I just wanted her to feel what she made me feel." Before Logan could answer, Eleanor handed Aubrey her clutch. "We leave now. The next steps require caution, not an audience." Aubrey turned one last time toward the ballroom, the place where Garrett's empire died and her future began. For the first time in years, she felt the possibility of peace. But she also sensed something else, a subtle shift in the air, a storm gathering in the distance. Because the man in the gray suit hadn't left the hotel. He was waiting, and he was waiting for her. The night wind along the Beverly Regent driveway felt different, lighter somehow, as if the universe itself had exhaled alongside Aubrey. The gala behind her was still roaring with chaos, reporters chasing every angle of Garrett's downfall, investors scrambling, Vienna lost in a whirlwind of disgrace, but Aubrey walked out calm. Not because everything was fixed, but because, for the first time in years, her life finally belonged to her. Logan guided her toward the waiting car. Eleanor followed, speaking quietly into her phone, issuing instructions with surgical precision. As Aubrey reached the steps, the man in the gray suit stepped forward. He didn't rush. He didn't threaten. He simply existed in her path like a question she wasn't ready to answer. "Miss Lancaster," he said, his voice calm, smooth, and unmistakably authoritative. "A moment, please." Logan instantly moved in front of Aubrey. "If you have questions, go through legal channels." The man lifted a badge slightly, not enough for cameras to catch, but enough for them to see. "Department of Justice." "Miss Lancaster," he repeated, "we've been observing tonight's events. What you exposed is substantial. We'd like your cooperation moving forward." Aubrey inhaled slowly. "Cooperation with what?" "With a larger investigation," he said. "Your ex-husband wasn't acting alone. We believe your father's encrypted files may hold names that reach far beyond Garrett Hollingsworth." Eleanor stepped closer. "She's not answering anything tonight. She's exhausted and under protection." The agent nodded respectfully. "Understood. But this will resurface soon. Miss Lancaster, your father's legacy isn't finished." He gave a slight bow, then stepped back, disappearing into a passing cluster of journalists. Aubrey stared after him, her pulse fluttering. Logan touched her elbow gently. "Don't worry about him tonight. You've done more than enough." "Will this ever actually end?" she whispered. "Yes," Logan said, "because now you have power, and people who won't let you drown." Eleanor gestured toward the car. "Come, you need rest. Tomorrow, we start rebuilding." At the private villa Eleanor arranged just outside Los Angeles, Aubrey stepped inside and froze. Soft lights, warm colors, a real bed, a quiet room. It had been years since she stayed anywhere that felt like a home rather than a stage for Garrett's performance of wealth. She removed her shoes slowly, letting her bare feet sink into the carpet. Logan waited near the doorway, hands in his pockets, watching her with that steady calm that had kept her grounded from the beginning. "You were extraordinary tonight," he said. Aubrey turned toward him, tears warming her eyes. "I was terrified." "I know," he replied softly. "But you moved anyway. That's bravery." She swallowed. "I couldn't have survived any of this without you. You survived long before I got involved," he said. "I just stood beside you. You did the fighting." Aubrey stepped closer. "Logan, what happens now? After all of this?" He hesitated, then offered a small smile. "Now, you get a life, a real one, not one built around Garrett's ego or Vienna's envy. You get to choose your city, your job, your friends, your love." Her breath caught at the last word. Logan's voice grew quieter. "If you want me in that future, I'm here. If you need space, I'll wait. What matters is that it's your choice." Aubrey touched his hand, gently, deliberately. "My whole life has been lived for other people," she whispered. "Tonight, I want to choose something for myself." "And what's that?" he asked, voice barely audible. She stepped closer, resting her forehead against his. "You." His breath shook. Then he kissed her, soft, slow, reverent. Not like Garrett's performative affection, not like Vienna's poisoned loyalty, but like a man who saw her as equal, as human, as whole. Later that night, as Aubrey stood on the balcony overlooking the quiet hills, she opened her father's photograph. For the first time, she didn't feel grief. She felt gratitude. "Dad," she whispered, "I'm safe now." She pressed the metal falcon token to her heart. Her past had nearly destroyed her, but it had also given her strength. Aubrey Lancaster wasn't a victim anymore. She wasn't a shadow. She wasn't broken. She was reborn. And this time, the life ahead would be hers and hers alone. And so, that's how the story closes, my dear friends. You're still here with me, right? If you've stayed until this very moment, it means something in Aubrey's journey touched your heart in a quiet, personal way. Maybe it reminded you of your own strength, or of a time you had to walk away from something that was breaking you. Her story teaches us a truth many forget. Healing isn't loud. It's a choice you make in the silence of your own heart. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." And that's exactly what Aubrey discovered. When the world around her fell apart, she didn't collapse with it. She rebuilt herself. She remembered who she was before the lies, before the betrayal, before the fear. And you're allowed to do that too. You're allowed to restart, to protect your peace, to choose people who choose you back. If this story gave you courage, comfort, or even just a moment of clarity, then don't keep that feeling to yourself. Like this video, share it with someone who needs strength today, and subscribe so you and I can keep walking through more stories together. Because you're not alone. I'm right here with you.